And I think we're live. Welcome everyone, back for our, well, it's not our usual show. My timing's been all over the place lately. Unfortunately, it's a little bit hard sometimes due to the fact that I'm working photographer, so sometimes it's just hard to fit things in. But I thought I'd pop in now. I was going to do it tomorrow, but I thought, no, I'll just pop in and do it a little bit later. It's going to be interesting because I'd love to know what people think about what the best time is. And I might try and work around that. See, daylight savings changed everything and it threw everything out by a couple of hours. So it's interesting to see what people would like for the timelines or what time sort of suits most of you guys. I'm going to pop over to the live chat just to see who comes in. We are on pre-show time. So say hi, guys, if you're here. Who've we got? We've got Carl is saying new time, laugh out loud. I know I've been different times every single time we've been doing this stream. At least I'm on the same day, Carl. He's saying good morning, afternoon, evening to all. Drinking Coke this morning because I'm still working after this, so I've got to behave myself. Philippe said, I got excited when I saw the A7 Mark IV released in the corner of my eye. No, did I say released? I probably should have. Oh, released at CP. I probably should have put a question mark after that so people knew. I mean, it's still just a rumour. G'day, Gerald. How are you? Carl said, a lot of talk about this week. Lots to talk about this week. Yeah, there is actually. Jay said, wow, I'm very early. Hope my questions would get answered. What's your questions, Jay? Victor says, hello from New Jersey, USA. Carl said, David is tardy. This will go on his permanent record. I love it. Peter said, 9 p.m. Eastern time is perfect. Mirala says, hi from New York. JB Strobus says, hi, guys. Ricky says, hey. Nivak, good morning, David. Sean says, hello from Seattle, everyone. Gary says, hello, yellow, everybody. What's yellows? Is that meant to be hello, Gary? Altrix saying hello. Ricky says, good evening, David. Nivak said, working after this, sure. I am. Otherwise, I would be drinking with you guys. Mikhail says, where is the A7S III? I'll talk about that when we go through those stories too soon. Steve said, greetings all. Brandon says, morning, evening, afternoon, everyone. Photomiak, g'day, Ike. Jamie says, hello, everyone from northern New South Wales. G'day, Jamie. Hope you're okay up there. Guy with the camera said, hello, different time. I have to delay family dinner. I love it. Altrix said, thumbs down already. Oh, do you know what? I cannot believe... Oh, no, it's gone. Someone made a mistake. But do you know, the thing is, I got about... What was it? I got about 5 or 6... I'm going to tell you. I got about 5 or 6... thumbs down on my Christmas message. You're going to love this. Just wait till you hear this. Let me just check. Where are we? So, let me show more. On my Christmas message, which is just a Christmas message, I got 6 thumbs down on my Christmas message. And do you believe on the video I posted about asking to help the koalas in the fire destruction, I got 5 thumbs down. What is wrong with people? They... Why don't they just unsubscribe? I mean, they must be subscribed to me to see it. How can you give a thumbs down to a Christmas message when I'm saying nice things to everyone? It's just a crack up, honestly. People, they just amaze me. They really do. They are an absolute crack up. What else have we got here? Someone says, glad you're doing well, New Jersey. I think I missed some actually here. Where were we? Tree says, I'm here to learn about the newest PlayStation. Oops, Sony camera. You sound like the angry photographer there, Tree. John said, g'day, mate. Jamie said, still Sony related, but Sony unveils a car. Looks impressive. You know, yeah, well, I shouldn't even say yes, it does, because I haven't even read that story, Jamie, because it didn't interest me, so... I don't know. So don't ask me anything about that because I won't be able to tell you anything. Still can't build the floppy screen people want though. Haha. I love that comment though, Jamie. That's quite funny. As said, hello from southern Arizona. Tim says hi from New York. Altric, what's good? Photomiak is talking to Photomiak. Brunel, I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Is it Brunatilla? Good day from the USA. When are you going to start selling the Type A t-shirts? We could start a merchandise deal. I know. I should do merch, shouldn't I, with this? It should be a merch deal. I should do one. I should bring some to the States with me. Funny thing is, I'll probably get checked up with border security when I come in, or whatever you call it. No, they won't let me in the country because I'll have 50 t-shirts in my bag with this on it. Guys, it's only a month away. Like this time next month on the 10th, it's only the 9th for you guys, I know, but it's the 10th for me. This time next month, I'll be just about ready to get on the flight to come to LA. Can't wait, it's getting so close now. MJ saying hello. Where were we up to? I'd just like to get through with these and say hello before we all start. Damien says, greeting from Sweden. Gary says, hello from Northern Ireland. What's up? Haven't been here for months. Well, good to see you in here, Daniel. Carl said the thumbs down have been expunged. Yeah, I know. I'm sure I'll get some, though. Don't you worry about that. Damien said, hi, David. Greetings from Sweden. I think I read that before. I'm thumbs up 5 times my favourite number. Manny Rain says, hello, David. You need some of my Alaskan cold weather to cool you down. I know. It's not too bad. Well, it's warm today. It's 32 degrees Celsius. There has been evacuations this morning. I'm going to talk about the Gofundme because it's been amazing. So I'll talk about that very, very soon with all you guys. But we're meant to be getting a change coming in sometime this afternoon with a bit of rain. It's not going to be enough to put out the fires, but at least it will help. So that's, anything is a bonus. I think the fires probably will be burning for probably the next 3 months. I don't think they'll be able to. They said yesterday on the news that they believe they'll be burning till March, at least March, April. Maybe until the end of April. So they will be burning for quite a while yet. We could use some of that Alaskan cold weather. Yeah, I know, and we need some rain, like some really good rain. YouTube should just remove the thumbs down option. I know, I agree with you, Nivak. I don't understand why they have that at all. Because the thing is, I laugh it off. But if you were a young YouTuber coming into this, into doing this sort of stuff, and you read some of the comments, like I had a guy abusing me about the GoFundMe page that I set up as well. Believe it or not, he actually had a go at me about it. Saying that, how would you know the money was being spent right and things like that? Well, I can guarantee my money's going to go to somewhere that will use it. But there's some horrible people out there, and young people would be really affected by this. I just shrug it off and laugh. But you just think some of the stuff out there is so toxic that, I don't think there's any need for a thumbs down at all. I can honestly say to you, and I really mean this, that some people that I hate on YouTube, but I would not watch them. And I certainly, even if I did watch them because something might be interesting, I would not give a thumbs down. I just wouldn't watch it. And that's the funny thing about it. But I think the thing is, it's more jealousy, and that's what young people have to understand. So the only thing I can say to young people who are getting into YouTube and trying to do something in YouTube is to understand that most of the time that the people that are giving you a thumbs down are losers, for starters. They're just losers. They've got no life, nothing better to do, and I can guarantee the ones that are doing that would not be photographers or any decent photographers, because I don't know anyone that is even a reasonable photographer or a decent person or a good photographer that would ever give a thumbs down to another person, because it's useless. It doesn't mean anything. Give a comment to sort of say why you think something's not right or something like that. Be constructive, but just to give a thumbs down is a gutless way, I think, of doing something. And like I said, they're probably sitting in their grandmother's basement down below, and just their low lifes basically. So I just shrug it off. I just got a thumbs down then. I love it. So let's keep going. Hey, thumbs down just count as much, and that's the interesting Photomiak. They do, and this is what the people don't understand that give thumbs down. They do still count in your analytics. So in a way, they're giving you something. So they might be haters, and I think that's what a lot of it is. They're jealousy. The jealousy's there because the second I post a video, I'm sure Ike says the same thing, I'll put a video up that's 4 minutes long, and I'll get a thumbs down within about 10 seconds of posting it. So clearly people have agendas, and anyway, who cares? Hi David, I was just going to bed. I will stay up now. Love your show. Thank you so much, Billy. Daniel said that's not a good idea. MJ says thumbs down for koalas. How some people have no heart. I know. I couldn't believe it either. I really couldn't. Toto says, hey David, this is Toto from New Jersey. I've been following you online. This is my first real session. Thank you so much for joining us, Toto. Also here, we need to track those thumbs down. Well, you can't. You can only see where they come from. You can check by country, but that's as much as you can tell. It would be interesting, though, if you could track it down to cities and things like that, though. Jay said, is 2020 the year of 6K or is it overrated? Better to have 422 raw internal recording with 1080 or 4K. I'm not sure if 2020 will be 6K, but I am going to talk about the Canon camera, and that's getting close to that. Remember, Sony cameras are also shooting 6K, but they're downsampled to 4K. I'm hoping that it is the year, definitely, where we get, say, bigger bit depths, and also maybe raw video for video shooters, but I'll talk about this stuff a bit later. But definitely 4K 60. I think that is what we need more than anything else. Tech for Nerds is saying, hello, that Sony car uses a lot of Sony imaging tech for self-driving. Yeah, I probably should look at it, Nivak. Tech for Your Needs says, I'm from Boston. John says, I'm lusting after the EOS R. It's a nice camera. Peter says, world peace, thumbs down. I know. Altric, I would like one of those shirts from the 20 that I bring Altric, or the 50 I bring Altric. Mike saying hello. Nathan says, how soon you're starting? Have to run soon. Look, this always goes on forever, Nathan. You might have to catch it later on. They should put their name next to the thumbs down. Yeah, I know. Own it. It's the real world, David. People aren't nice, and the young people need to get a dose of it to build character. Yeah, maybe, Ike. Forget the haters, bro. Laugh out loud. All right, that's about it. Now, let me just... now, I'm hoping when I bring up the intro today that it doesn't wreck the audio sync. So keep your fingers crossed. Last time it went berserk, so I'm going to try it again. Hopefully it doesn't. But let's just see if this works. So let me just put the time down because we're going to start the show. What are we, 13:06. All right, let's go.
If you're looking for some crazy, I'll tell you everybody's standing in a line for the water slide. You can come on over, we can take the roller coaster. And you know everybody's looking for a ride in the water slide. Water slide. Surfing on a wave of good feelings.
Well, keep my fingers crossed. Just tell me if the audio's okay, because last week it went nuts. So let me know if the audio's working, because I was nervous about doing that today. I thought, oh no, it's going to go again. So let me know if it is okay. I'm hoping that it's all okay, but who knows? I mean, you can't tell. I think it was a YouTube thing. But last week I had to put it down to 2 mixes. So, hi everyone. So welcome today. Welcome for the show. It is a bit of a different time. I'm still trying to work out what the best time is. Like sometimes I do it early in the day and sometimes it's later on in the day. I'm just waiting to see if the audio is okay. So let me know in the audio the second you can put this up to know that it's not out of sync. Okay, thank you. That's great, Ryan. Last week was a disaster. Okay, so what I wanted to talk with you first today is about... just let me mark this because I wanted to go on from where we were with these questions. Just so I know where to go back to. All right, so I just wanted to thank Sony Alpha Rumors for sharing my GoFundMe page. They shared that this morning. I did send it over to Petapixel, but I don't think Petapixel have done it. I was hoping they would, seeing it was a good cause. But Sony Alpha Rumors did, so thank you, Andrea, for sharing it. It is done amazingly well. I think at the moment, let me just see, well, I'll tell you the exact figure that we're up to now. We're up to $6,840, so it's amazing. So we're nearly $7,000. So the original goal I put in was only, I think, $2,000, and I've just kept making it larger as more and more money's come in. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to tell you where I'm going to donate this money to, because I found this great Australian organisation that is called Vets for Compassion. And what they are is... it's actually a bit big here, but let me just reduce this size down so I can just show you for a second. I'll just have to adjust it again when I go back to the other thing. So this is the site. It's called Vets for Compassion. And what they do, these people are the first people that go in after things like these bushfires. And you can see here that they're looking after this sick koala, obviously, that's been caught in the bushfire. And they do multiple different things. Let me just see if I can refresh this page so you'll see it'll change and show a couple of things. So you can see here that this is where they're caring for a kangaroo, obviously, that's in the bushfires. They do things, like I said, they'll go in right from the start. You can see here they're bringing something out. So these are vets. So these vets go in and say give the immediate help and take the sick animals out of the bush and look after them. And they'll apply things like the ointment, the bandages and everything else, and take them away and then get them to somewhere where they can be looked after. So this is the place that I'm going to donate the money to. Now, what I'm going to do, as soon as I'm going to keep it going for a little bit longer, because look, like I said, these bushfires are going to go for the next 4 months. And we're going to, I believe from yesterday, they said that we're up to nearly 1 billion animals now have been probably killed due to these bushfires. So I'm going to keep it going a little bit longer, and then I'm going to transfer the whole lot in one go to this Vets for Compassion. Now, I've contacted them, and they said yes, that they'd love me to be involved and donate it to them. The second that I donate, I'll show you. I will keep a copy of the... I'll tell you what the final amount is on GoFundMe, and I'll also show you that amount being donated into the site. I want to be totally transparent about what's been done with the money, and that I've transferred everything over so that everything you've given me has moved over. I mean, I've had people... Look, it's been amazing. I've had people give $1. I don't care, whatever it is. I mean, anything helps. But sometimes I've been blown away. One man who... he gave $1,000. He said that his wife was a passionate animal lover who loved to help animals, and he gave $1,000 in memory of his wife. You know, I've had people give $400. I've had people give $1. I've had people give $10, $20. It doesn't matter. It's just the fact that people are helping, and like I said, every single thing makes a difference. So thank you so much. So I did want to let you know where the money's going to be going. Because, you know, it's like I said, I wanted to be totally transparent to where it's all going. So thank you so much for that. Now, the A9, I wanted to just talk about this because I've been using it. I've still got the A9 II for about another, I think 2 weeks. Another week or so I've still got it for. I've been using it extensively. And I'll show you a couple of images in a second. Actually, I'll show you now. I'll just show you a couple of images that I've been taking with the A9. Let me just open this up. I've got to reduce this down, actually. Let me just take this out. Did I take that? All right, let me come back to here. I just want to make this the right size before I go any further, because I'll forget. All right, so let me just open up these images. So I'll show you a couple of the images that I've been taking. I've really been enjoying using this. I've really been enjoying using the camera. These images are shot, I think this was the 70-200 f4, 70-200 2.8 G Master. I adore this image. I love it. I am going to do a full review of the camera and lenses and things like that shortly, but I just wanted to show you some of the images that I've been taken with this. This is one of my favourite images I think I've probably ever taken. There's just something about this image that I love. She is naturally backlit, and I love that. There's no light being hit from the back, but I have lit her from the front. But I just adore the pose here. I love the rendering. I love the depth of field. I love how sharp she is. I love everything about this. So let me close that and I'll open up another one. This was one that I did at Christmas. So this is Chanel at Christmas time. And again, this was with the 70-200. I wanted to use that at the time because Sony sent me that as well, and I wanted to see how it looked, and I'm really happy with it. I love, like she's very, very sharp against the background. I just love the color here. I love the leading lines of the Christmas trees and things like that. But like I said, I will review this fully for you guys. Another image that I took on the same evening is this one, which I also love. Great for backlighting, things like that. Like I was testing to see how it would focus with the backlight coming through. There's a tram here with very, very strong lights that's lighting her from behind. I wanted to see how the autofocus went. So I'm trying different things to sort of see how I go with this camera. And the last one was one I did just on... last two. The last two that I've got is a couple that I've just done on the weekend. This was with the Sony A9 and the 24 GM. I love that lens. I love that combination. She's naturally lit from the front with also a bit of fill from the Profoto B10. But, I love this with Chiara. It's been a while since I've worked with Chiara, and I love this. There will be a video done of this soon of the whole thing of me working with Chiara with the A9. That's another one that's there. And lastly, this one that I just took with the 135. I've posted this on a number of sites as well. So this was the A9 II with the 135mm. I love the rendering that lens gives me. It is unbelievable. I don't like to take it off the camera. Again, she's popping from that background. It's ultra sharp. I just love it. I'm really happy with how it's gone. So I just wanted to show you how I have been using the Sony A9 in real use and trying different things like backlighting, things like that. So I've been trying a number of different things with that camera to really push it so that I can give you a fair review when I review that, in a week or so as well. I did review the Tamron 24 and the 35mm. That was part of what I used with Chiara yesterday. That review probably may be up tomorrow. So I've done that, and I was very, very happy with those lenses. I'm just reviewing them together, though. When we come to the US, I'm hoping that I can take the 20mm Tamron. I spoke to Tamron yesterday, and I'm hoping that I'll get the 20mm that I can take to the US with me, and a few other things that I can't talk about yet. But that's going to be interesting as well. So I probably will be able to have some gear that I'll also be able to review when I come to the US next month. So that's sort of all there is in the news side of things about what's coming up. But let's get stuck into the first story today, which is the Sony Mark IV. A7 IV. What time are we on? 23. And then I'll open up Q&A a little bit. It's 49 actually. 50. All right, so let's go to the first story. Let me go back to here. Sony Alpha Rumors have said this. They've announced just yesterday that or it might have been this morning I saw this, that they now believe that the A7 IV is going to be announced and released, announced at the CP Plus show. Now, this makes a lot of sense because this was actually the A7 III, the original A7 III was also announced at CP Plus as well. So this may be a definite goer. There was sort of rumours going around that it would be CES, and that sort of didn't make sense. I was hoping that it would be WPPI, and you never know, it still may be. But this is around the same time. This is, I believe it's February. I think it's something like February the 27th. But if you look down here, it's saying that we have now heard from two reliable sources that that Sony will definitely announce new E-mount gear around the CP Plus show. One of these sources said there was at least one new camera and a new handle with Bluetooth. I'm not sure what that means, what a new handle with Bluetooth means. Do they mean a grip? I'm not quite sure what they mean there. But they said here, I've got no confirmation yet about what camera we should expect, but I bet high that it's the A7 IV, after the A7 III was also announced at the CP Plus show 2 years ago. And there's also lenses announced as well that I'll talk about in a minute in the next story. But it just says here, guess the specs, and I'll talk about that in a second. We'll go through what I sort of think the specs may be. They're sort of predicting a 24 megapixel sensor. And they're also saying they hope it is a new sensor, not just a rehashed one that's in the A7 III. They're saying a completely new version. They're also saying in here as well, what about the A7S III? They're still saying that they believe that the A7S III is going to be a NAB. The only reliable rumor has said that it's going to have 4K 120p and a vent on the back to cool the sensor down. So that's the rumor side on the A7 IV at the moment. Now, I did say a couple of, I think in the last live show, that I still, and I've said this even before Christmas, that I do still believe the A7 IV is going to be announced before the A7S III. I think Sony probably still have to get over some issues with the A7S. Due to the fact of the heat, Sony have to do something with the body or something on the A7S. Because look at what Panasonic did with their cameras. They have had to put the heat sink on the SH1. I think that's the camera it is. It's the Panasonic SH1. They have had to put a heat sink on that camera to enable the heat to get away. And if you look at the Canon 1DX, well, the Canon 1DX can give you those sort of massive resolution, but it's in a massive camera body, so the heat can get away. So I think there are still probably issues that Sony have to work around with the A7S III or whatever that camera is before they can announce that. So that's probably why that's been held back for so long. Remember, Sony did say that they want to exceed expectations. So if they do want to exceed expectations on that, they can't just give us 4K 60 on an A7S III now, because that's been out for ages with other brands. So they can't just give us that now and expect people to be happy with that, or to be happy that they've exceeded expectations. So Sony Alpha rumors may be correct that it could be 4K 120, and that would exceed expectations because it is as better than what anything else is out there. So, but the things we still need to understand, are they going to hold the bit depths back to protect their FS7? We don't know yet what they're going to do with that. And I've argued before with you guys that I think that's a flawed argument from Sony, because I think a really good A7S III camera would be an incredible B camera to have with an FS7 or something like that. They could coincide together. You could have the Venice color science on that camera, and it would be amazing. And I think they both would sell. Remember, like I've said before, I don't think that would stop sales of the FS7 series at all, because people that buy FS7 cameras buy them for their size, for their dependability, for their ability to add hard drives, for their ability to add mics to that, your XLR mics, things like that. So, and if you're doing professional videography for high-paying clients, you would be using something like an FS7. So I don't think it's going to affect their sales. So I think Sony need to understand that. But anyway, cheers with a Coke. But I think that I do think the A7 IV is the next camera that's going to be announced, and it totally makes sense to me that that Sony have had that camera out now for 2 years, and it's still a great camera, but they are due for an update. And I noticed Ike said before that the Sony cameras now have the worst video specs, and they do. Apart from video autofocus, Sony have the worst video specs of any brand now, a full-frame brand now in the market. So it's interesting. That's one area where they have to improve. If you're talking about stills, they're up there with everyone. But if you're dealing with video side of things, they're now starting to get way behind. So it's interesting. But, I am interested to see what the A7 IV has in it. Look, you would think it's going to have the new body. I mean, let's face it. I think every camera that Sony released now in the A7 series is going to have this new body. It's slightly larger, better weather sealing, although we had a discussion in the videography school this morning that, I said I don't think weather sealing is even a problem in the A7 III, the a7R3, or the A9, because, like I said, I've used this or my A9 and A7 III in rain. I've used it under waterfalls, and I've never ever had it fail. So I think the weather sealing is much better than people give it credit for. There are issues like the seal underneath. Like the issue with the Sony cameras is the hot shoe. And that's the same if you're dealing with an A9 too. It's the same if you're dealing with an A7R4. And it was a problem with the door in the older cameras because it has that little hole. I don't think... Yeah, it's here. With the A7 III, you've got the little latch that sort of sits underneath here that you can let something through if you're using a dummy battery. Well, that is a weakness. And I know that there's been reports that if you leave it down on the ground, you can get weather or water penetrating from underneath. But in normal usage, like when you're holding it, I just don't put it down on a wet surface. But if you're dealing with a normal use, like using it in the rain or whatever, as long as you have a sealed lens, I'm very, very confident that I can use this in the wet. And in fact, I have, and I've had them drenched, and they've both been fine. I mean, I had them in New Zealand and in waterfalls. They were totally drenched. I should have filmed it, and the A9 has never let me down. So I would think that, an A7 IV is going to have the same body now. I mean, you're going to have that. It's going to have the better buttons, and the buttons are much better in the new bodies. The handle is bigger. The funny thing is, and I've discussed this before, I prefer the original A9 to the A9 to the body, but I have small hands, so for me, I actually like the feel of the original A9, but I do like the feel of the buttons that are on the A9 too. They are much better than the buttons that are on the original A9. So I think you're going to get that. I think you're going to get the better EVF in the A7 IV. You'll also get the dual card slots, and you're going to get both fast dual card slots there. I mean, I think that will be a given. So I think it's going to be based completely on the body that we're seeing here and also the A7R4. Better weather sealing, obviously. But like I said, I don't think that's been an issue before. But anything that they can do better in that regard is a help. I think... I wouldn't be surprised if it's a higher resolution sensor, and I still would not be surprised if they give us 4K 60p in that camera. I know Casey from Camera Conspiracies had a go at me the other day. I laughed. He's joking, but he mentioned to me the other day that if David says it every single time on the live shows that I do, that I only want 4K for 3 minutes and I'll be happy, and I will. 4K 60, I would be happy. So I still would not be surprised if they give us 4K 60 in that for a short period of time. Now, how could then that differ from, say, an A7S III? Well, easily, because an A7S III could give us better low light, obviously, but it also could give us better bit depths. That I'm not sure about, but it could. It may possibly give us the Venice color science. That would match what we've got in the FS7s. And also it could give us 4K 120. So they still could give us a big difference between, say, an A7S III and an A7 IV. So it wouldn't surprise me if Sony do allow us to have that. You'll obviously have the ability to change the focus color, which is a pity they haven't brought that into the other cameras, but I think we're going to get that in the A7 IV. We probably will get, I would almost be certain that we'll get the tracking of the A9, that tracking ability that we've got in that as well. So we're going to get some big improvements. Remember, when the A7 III came out, there was nothing could match it in the marketplace. So I think we may get a really good release again for the A7 IV. That will not take sales away from the A7S because videographers are still going to buy a higher spec machine. I would be happy with something like an A7 III if that gave me 4K 60 though. An A7 IV, I mean. I wouldn't be surprised if we get something like, getting close to 30 megapixels. I mean, I'm hoping that's the case. And I think it will be a mini A7R4. I think that's probably what we're going to find with the A7 IV is going to be a mini A7 R4, and that's what I'm predicting it's going to be. Hopefully they will give us a completely new sensor and not just a rehashed one of the A7 III in a better body. I'm really hoping that they do improve the sensor. But I think it's an exciting time anyway. I think this is going to be a big year for Sony, guys. I think we're going to see an A7 IV, and I think we definitely will see sometime this year the A7S 3 or whatever that camera is. So I think we're in for a big year from Sony, and it's going to be interesting. So stay tuned. Hopefully it'll happen. Some of it will happen while I'm in the US. So let me open up the chat because I'm just curious to see what you guys are saying about this. Where were we? I'm just trying to get down to where people are commenting about things. Tony Northrup did a video with at least a mild suggestion that 1080 was plenty for YouTube. Well, he's wrong. The thing is, if you record at 1080, and this is with the Sony cameras particularly, I'm not sure about using if it's Nikon or Canon, but if you record in 1080 and then in 4K, you get a much better looking image by recording in 4K and then downsampling it to 1080p. The other thing that you've got to understand too is that YouTube particularly, I don't do it all the time because it does take much more time to process, but if you upload a 4K image to YouTube, you get a much nicer look than if it's a 1080 image. It's something to do with the way it compresses the files and things like that. Your 4K sample going to YouTube is much nicer. For Tony to say that, he's wrong because there's multiple reasons why, as a videographer, you would want to use 4K to shoot all the time. And the reason why I do that, it's the same reason why people love the A7R4. What's one of the main reasons people love the A7R4? I know it's image quality, but it's the ability to crop into that image. So you can get multiple images from your same file. Well, you do the same thing if you're recording in 4K. You can do the same thing even better if you're recording in 6K. Remember, it gives you the ability to crop in at 100% and not have any loss of quality. It also gives you the ability to add things like stabilization and things like that in post. There's huge advantages to shoot in 4K. So if Tony said that, I didn't look at that video, but if Tony said that, he's completely wrong in what he's saying. There is massive advantages in being able to shoot in 4K. Remember also that if you're going to keep this stuff for a while, you're future-proofing it. Because, look, in 5 years' time, everyone is going to have a 4K television. Maybe 8. So you really are limiting your work to be shared in the future because, let me put it this way, if you now look at image that was done from 10 years ago, if you look at some of the old footage that was done in those days, you look at that footage and you go, oh my God, you don't realise how bad that footage looks now when you look at it on your high-def televisions. It looks disgusting. If you don't believe me, just go to YouTube and look up something like I Dream of Jeannie or whatever, Bewitched, or any of these older programs, Maxwell Smart, stuff like that. Have a look at the quality, what those things look like compared to what they look like today if you would have shot them today. So having that ability to shoot in higher resolution is a massive benefit. So there is a big benefit if you want to future-proof things to be shooting in a higher resolution. So I disagree with what he's saying. And as computers get a bit more powerful, or much more powerful, 4K is not going to be an issue editing it anyway. But it's interesting. Let's keep going down in the stories. 4K all day as well. Tony has weak arguments. I don't know what he was talking about if that's the case. Like I said, I didn't watch it, so I can't comment about what he was saying. What else? Hi David, I need your advice please. I bought the Sony a7R Mark IV, but I don't know how to shoot in low light without getting noise in the image. Yosef Yusef, I think it is. Make sure you're exposing correctly. Look, the secret to getting low noise images is to slightly overexpose. Remember that unless you really need to like have an incredible dynamic range and you're trying to protect a highlight somewhere in that image, you're better off to expose slightly to the right. Now, with today's cameras, you can go 1.5 stops over and recover the highlights. You need to test this yourself though, just to make sure you can get that highlight recovery back. But what I can tell you is that you're better off to go slightly over and then reduce the exposure back to bring your highlights back into play, as long as you've got that recoverability in the file, because if you do that, you'll have far less noise. The issue is if you underexpose, remember, where does your noise live? It lives in the shadow. So if you're trying to underexpose to bring that back up in post later on, that's where you're going to see noise. So what I can suggest to you is make sure you never underexpose, or always go slightly to the right and then bring your exposure back down in post. You really need to saturate that sensor, and the only way you can do that is to nail your exposure or overexpose it. The second you underexpose with the sensor that's there, you are affecting its dynamic range, and you're not saturating the sensor, which means you're not going to get full color and dynamic range out of that sensor. So just make sure you expose slightly to the right. I always used to go under, but nowadays with the better sensors, I'm finding that I've got recoverability in the highlights now, which I never had before. And like I said, if you go 1 to 1.5 stops over and then bring that back, you should be fine. But like I said, test it to make sure that you can get that highlight recovery back, because remember, there's nothing worse than blowing out highlights. So you need to do some checking yourself. So that's what I suggest to you, is to learn how to expose dead on or go a little bit to the right. Photomix says, I mean, like, really, what could Sony possibly do with the A7S at this point? Like I said, probably 4K 125 would be it. Michelle said, laugh out loud, I agree, Photomix. I wish I could put my faith in Sony, but they've been toying with us for a while. Videographers are getting frustrated, and I have to admit that. I'm getting frustrated that I can't shoot slow motion in 4K. Because being a wedding photographer and videographer, it really hurts me, particularly not being able to shoot in 4K and slow that down. That forces me to shoot 1080p, and it's a bummer. I'm really jealous of people that can shoot 4K 60. 80 thumbs up. Thank you so much for the thumbs up, guys. I really appreciate that. Hi, David. Can you recommend a variable ND filter? Yes, I can. I use these. I'll grab them. Hang on. Now, I bought the Peter McKinnon ones, but now I recommend the Freewell ones. It's these ones. Now, Freewell did send me these, so it's full disclosure. I didn't pay for these from Freewell. But if I'd known how good these are, I wouldn't have bought the Peter McKinnon ones because they were very, very expensive. I've found these to be just as good. There might be a slight... Check, I've done a review of them, and I compare both of them, and I can't remember. If you go back, you'll find the review of the Freewell NDs. There was a very, very extra slight cast, but I'm talking minute, that's 2 seconds. You've got to fix any of them in Final Cut anyway. But these are brilliant, and there's two of them. There's I think it's the 2 to 5, and then the 6 to, or the 5 to 9 stop. I recommend them. They're half price of the Peter McKinnon ones. And I did buy the Peter McKinnon ones. Sure, Siri. What else? So that's what I recommend for the GM. The beauty of that is they also fit the Tamron lenses, so they will fit on the GM, and I love that lens. It's one of my favourite lenses, the GM24. They'll fit on that, and they also fit on all the Tamron lenses as well, like the 17 to 28, the 28 to 75, and the 24, 35, and the 24mm, the 20mm that I had. They're all the 67mm, so that's one great thing about that. Gerald says, I'm afraid there will be no 4K 60 in the A7 IV. Sony still sells a ton of A7 IIIs. They may save the 4K 60 or 4K 120 for the A7S or whatever it is called. Yeah, it's hard to say, Gerald. I'm hoping they do give us that. Like I said, remember when the A7 III was released, that beat everything in the marketplace at that range. That's why I think I wouldn't be surprised to see it in there, but we'll have to wait and see. Photomix says, people need to learn lighting, not how to change the ISO. I'm not sure what that meant. It must have been talking about something else. I prefer the natural lights at night. I now nearly use continuous light all the time. I've changed from using flash. That image that I showed you early on, I even use it in daylight, because this one, that one here, where are we? I'm just going to see if I can bring it over. That one there that I did was daylight, but it was also lit with the Profoto B10 using continuous lighting, because I didn't want to use flash. I wanted to control to the minute detail the amount of flash that was going to hit Kiara, or the amount of light that was going to hit Kiara. The problem was, because this was a door that was coming through here, and that's lighting up Kiara, her legs were really in darkness. So Ben was there helping me doing this. He was holding the light for me. Thanks, Ben. I wanted the light also to come onto Kiara's legs and body down here to add some detail, because this was all lost. So I got him to sort of shift that light around so it spread over the whole of Kiara, and it gave Kiara that little bit of a fill that I needed. So I'm using it in the daytime, and when I'm doing things like this one, these were all shot with the continuous lighting. So, I'm not using flash anymore when I'm doing this. I'm using the continuous lighting now on the Profoto. So I'm tending to shift away from using flash. And people in the US that come and work with me or do some walks with me or whatever, I'll demonstrate this to you when I'm over there. And you can have a go at it, because we're going to have some photo walks and stuff like that. You can have a look at this, and I'll show you how it all works. And I'm going to bring my Profoto B10 with me. And I'll demonstrate it to you when we have meetups in LA and Santa Monica Beach and San Francisco and Vegas, all over the place. So, I'll demonstrate how to use all this, that these have all had that continuous light done instead of having flash done. And what I love about it is I can control the color temperature. So the beauty is here that I can control the exact color temperature to match what is above it. That's going on. I mean, Chanel here, I want it to be a little bit warmer, so I can control this without using gels or whatever. I can match that ambient temperature very, very easily using this continuous lighting. So I'm moving towards that an awful lot more. I mean, yes, with things like this one, I had to use flash on this because Kiara was heavily backlit here. The light behind her was very heavy, and I think this was 1/2000th of a second, because I wanted to maintain the background. So you can't use continuous light in this scenario. You have to use flash in this scenario. So I had to really overpower the sun here, using high-speed sync. So if you're going to start using something like high-speed sync, you need to use flash. So I love having the ability to change from having continuous light to flash power in the one unit and just do whatever I need to do. I love it. And it's changed the way that I shoot. And like I said, I for evening shots and sort of nighttime shots now, I very rarely use flash work. I'm nearly always going continuous light now. Guy with the camera said 4K all day. Tony has weak arguments. Yeah, I'm not sure what he was going on about that. What else have we got here? Let's make it interesting. Sony will announce the A7 IV with a 36 megapixel sensor and linked with 4K 60 and to an A7S with a 20 megapixel sensor and 4K 120. Wouldn't that be amazing? I heard the other day it was 15 or something with the A7S, but who knows? Langston said, agreed with people merging two very different ways of production, declaring one way to be the one way to be true. I'm not sure what that means. Obviously, I've missed a comment. Jim shared the link, I think, somewhere for the Gofundme page. Thanks, Jim. Gerald says, I'm going to talks with Langston this week, but it will be the easiest to set meetups on both the Facebook group and David's site. Yeah, Gerald's organising the meetups. If you want to get involved, join the Photography Videography School. I will put the links down below. For the Photography Videography School. Join in there because Gerald and Langston and all that are organising some amazing stuff. Ike's even doing one. Ike is paying for a shoot though, but if you want to join that one, that'd be a fantastic shoot to go along with as well. That's going to be in Vegas. I'm going to be coming along with Ike for that as well. I mean, Ike's paying for models and doing other things, and I think he's hiring a car that will take people out there, so that's going to be an amazing one as well. What else have we got? Simon says, how do you feel about breakthrough technology filters? Haven't used them, Simon, so I can't comment on that. Michelle said, good explanation on exposing to the right, David. I do that with my a7R3. The noise looks fine. Film grain. Yep, that's the way to do it. If you expose to the right and bring your exposure down, you'll have way less noise. Way less noise. Just never, ever underexpose. Guys, if you're putting the ISO up on your camera, never underexpose. That's just asking for trouble. You'll be in big trouble if you do that. What else? Randy says, I'm hoping for full articulating screen. I don't think we're going to get that with a Sony camera, unfortunately. Photomix said, that's the point, Langston. Tony declaring something is wrong or dead to his 1 million subs is a problem. Maybe for him or you, but there are a ton of people who prefer the flexibility of 4K, and I'm one of them, definitely. I like to shoot 4K whenever I can because I find that quality is way better, and like I said, I love that flexibility to be able to get 2 camera shots in post. It's a game changer when you're shooting video on your own like I do, to be able to have it look like you've got 2 cameras being involved, or to have the ability to really add stabilization when you need it. You need to be shooting in 4K. And Langston says that too. I shoot 1080 when there's one take, or there'll be no cropping or editing, and I shoot 4K where I have to have full options in cropping. I mean, Langston, and that's fine because that's obviously your workflow. If I could, and it was 4K 60, I would shoot with 4K 60 every time I shot, just to have that flexibility in case. Remember, the whole thing here is in case if you need to do something. And if, like I said, it future-proofs your work. It gives me the ability to create something in 4K 60 and then slow that down to 30p if I need to. And I just want that flexibility, and I would do it in every shoot if I had it. Now, the other thing you've got to consider too is if you're shooting with the A6000 series, the A6400, the A6600, the 4K is way better than 1080p. 1080p is soft. So if you're shooting with the Sony APS-C cameras, you need to be shooting in 4K because it's soft if you shoot in 1080p compared to shooting 4K. But when I use my A6400, because I need to slow that down sometimes, I'm forced to shoot in 1080p. That's why I would love an APS-C camera that would give me the ability to shoot 4K 60. MJ says, I want the 135, but I'm not sure I will use it much. MJ, the 135 is my favourite lens. Look, my 2 favourite lenses are the 24 and the 135. I adore them. They are amazing. I would never now get rid of my 135. Look, you're right. The 85 is more versatile because you can get in tighter spaces. But the ability to shoot very close with the 135 is amazing. It's almost like a macro. Don't ever underestimate how close you can shoot with the 185. You know, you can do an amazing headshot, eye shot, things like that with the 135. It's brilliant for shooting in that range. If you need to do full body, yes, you need to be a long way back. I mean, when I shot this, someone said to me the other day that why is the background all not so blown out with the 135 at 1.8? And that's because I'm standing so far away from Kiara here. I'm probably 10 meters away. It might even be a fraction further away. But I can move into very, very close and get Kiara's head, head and shoulders, just below the belly. I can do that, the top half of her body. You can get very close with the 135. So it is workable in a tight space, but if you want full body, it's not. That's where I would use the 85. I'm lucky I've got the Batis as well. But I'm telling you that once you get the 135, you won't want to take it off your camera. There's two lenses I do not like to take off my camera, and that's the 24mm GM and the 135 GM. I also love the Tamron 28-75, but they're the two lenses that I just adore. I love that 24 and I love the 135. Like I said to people before, since I've had the 135, I haven't even used my 70-200 f4 because I just adore that 135 so much. I mean, if you look at that image of Kiara, it is stunning. It's that sharp. The rendering is beautiful. I mean, if you look at that image, when you check that out, if you look at that image, where are we there? Have a look on Facebook. I wish I could show you the full image that you could see that I'm looking at here. It is absolutely stunning. I mean, she just pops from that screen, and the rendering is gorgeous. The colors are gorgeous. The focus is amazing on that camera, on that lens as well. You can't beat it. I mean, people that have that know exactly what I'm talking about. It is a stunning lens. Let's go back to here. I'm going to have to move on in a minute because we're going to be here for 10 hours. Where were we? Articulating screen, I don't think we're going to get, guys. I think we're not going to get that at all. What else have I got down here just quickly? 4K 60 isn't compatible with 24p, so it needs to be 4K 48. 4K 72 would be fantastic. I recommend you have a show before David and Kerry travel to the USA. Help others who make sure they feel free to... But yeah, remember, guys, there's no cost for these meetups that I'm doing. Remember, I can't be charging money to come into the USA anyway. They'll stop me coming in. There's no money being charged. We're just getting a meetup with friends to get together. Like I said, Ike's charging for his. I'm going to go to Ike's. But if you do want to join Ike's, I recommend you do. It would be fantastic. You are going to have to pay for that because he's paying for models and a car to drive people to wherever we're going to go. But there won't be any money for the ones we're doing. It's just going to be a group of friends getting together, having a shoot. I'll be showing you all the things that I do. We can all work together, get some great images, and have a lot of fun. So, stay tuned for that, and please join us. Like I said, I probably won't be back to the States for a long time. I'm going to go to Europe the next trip that I do. So, I'd love to meet up as many people as I can while we're there. So... thank you so much, Long Rider, for the donation. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thanks, mate. All right, let's go to the next story. I just want to go through these lenses. We're already 57 minutes. Oh, my God. 57, 55. All right, next story is Sony are going to announce some new lenses. Let me just see if I need to move this. No. There's a rumor that Sony are going to announce 6 new E-mount lenses in 2020. So this is really interesting. I'm not sure what they are yet. No one's sort of saying what the lenses are going to be. I could probably have a guess, and I'd love you to let me know in the comment box down below what you think may be the lenses that we'll get this coming year. And they're saying one of them may be APS-C out of the 6, so that's interesting. They're also saying that some of them may be updates to the current lenses, like the 70-200 GM. I'm burping from Coke. And I think that may be true. I've got a feeling that Sony probably are going to bring out a wider angle lens. Like I'm hoping for something in the 12mm, 15mm sort of focal length. If they bring out something like that, like a 1.4 would be amazing if they bring out a really fast prime. I know they have the 12-25, but I'd love them to bring out a really fast prime. Like I said, like a 12mm. So I think that's probably one of the lenses that Sony would release. The 105 is probably another one that we keep hearing about that could come out this year sometime, and that also would be a useful lens to have. It's probably not one that I will have because If you've got the 85 and the 135, I could not justify having a 105. So I think that's probably not one that I would have. The choice would be, if you haven't got either, which one would you go for? Well, you may get the 105 is probably going to be a 104. If that matches the Sigma lens, it would be outstanding, and then that could be a really interesting one. But that focal length is fairly close to the 85, so I think we may see a 105 anyway, and we'll discuss that if that happens. What I think these probably are going to be more about is we may get a longer lens to match the A9, but I do think we're due to get updated. 70-200 is definitely one that could be updated, and it needs the linear focus motors that Sony have in the 135. Like I said, once you've used a 135, you understand how useful that is. So I think you might see a version 2 of the 70-200. The other lens that has to be updated too, I shouldn't say has, but could do with an update, is the 2470 f2.8 as well. I know people who have that lens love it, but if you look at Canon and Nikon, they've all had updates, to sort of even version 2, version 3 of those lenses. So sooner or later, Sony have to do update to those lenses, and I wouldn't be surprised to see if they're updated soon as well. And I think you might find that we'll get version 2s of those lenses, and that could just be, it can only be a good thing. If you have that linear focus motors, you'll probably get sharper lenses, things like that, similar to what we got in the 135. They would be amazing, and I think that's probably in the roadmap coming up in the future. So I think that could be something that's really going to happen this year. Let me know in the comment box down below what you think could be coming. I'd be curious to know too, because I always answer questions anyway. But let me know what you think we may get in the coming year. I'm going to keep moving, guys, and we'll come back to questions at the end. Canon 1DX. Let's talk about this 10140. Oops. Now, Canon has announced, it's interesting because Canon has announced this. Look, I haven't used it, and so I'm not going to say that I know everything about this. I have used the 1DX Mark II, but I haven't used, obviously, this because there isn't any available at this stage. I know there are reports now of people using them, but they're Canon ambassadors, so you can sort of take that with a grain of salt, I would think, if you're looking at reviews being put out there by the Canon ambassadors, because naturally they're only going to tell you what's fantastic about the camera, and they probably won't tell you anything that's bad about the camera. So I still think, looking at the specs, that this is going to be an incredible camera. Now, this is coming from a Sony user. I think this is an amazing release from Canon, and I think this is probably the last, and I'll talk about that in a minute, because they've sort of given an announcement with their lenses as well. But I think this is probably going to be the last of their digital SLRs, certainly their high-end digital SLRs. And the next camera that could come out sometime this year, actually, after this, because there's no way they're going to jeopardize sales of this, but say late this year, you might find that these features may be put into to a mirrorless camera that they will be coming out with. An EOS R high-end camera, whatever that's going to be, could have most of these features in the camera that's going to be announced later this year, and then we really have a game on our hands, which could be pretty incredible. But the specs of this camera are amazing. It's like a hybrid camera, so it is more like a hybrid camera between a digital SLR and a mirrorless camera. Because the mirrorless, when I say mirrorless, I'm talking about using it as a mirrorless camera with just your screen at the back, is outstanding. I mean, the video component of this camera is amazing, apart from the autofocus when you're dealing with the very high-ended stuff. But let's look at what this camera has anyway. I mean, obviously the body is amazing. It's like the D5 or the D6 is also amazing. That's what I came from. I had the D4S. The bodies are incredible if you like that big high-end type body, that's built like an absolute tank. Like I said, I've dropped my D4S and had it roll down a hill, and it was concrete. It was a road, and it didn't even mark it. It was like everyone was, like this when I did it. But I picked up the camera, and it didn't dent it. It didn't mark it like they are literally. I think you could run a car over it, and they'd probably still be okay. But let's look at some of the specs. It's native ISO 100 to 102,400, extended to 50 to 819. I've got to move that up a bit. Optimized low pass filter. Now what they've done is they've made the low pass filter better in this camera. The old one was a very strong low pass filter, and that's due to moire and things like that. It stops moire, but it did affect the sharpness in the older version. So it did have an effect on the camera. So this apparently is much better. So we should see much better images on this camera than what we saw in the previous Mark II of this camera. It's got this new HEIF format. Now that's amazing because they've got rid of that horrible JPEG format that was there before. And now they've gone for HEIF. It's got a new processor. You're going to get speeds of up to 16 frames per second with the viewfinder and 20 frames per second in live view. Now this is where we still have to wait to see in real life what we get. I know in the previous camera they said it was 16 and it ended up being about 12. So I think you'll probably find it's going to be the same thing with this one. I don't think you'll get 20 with full focus. And I believe that if this is the same way the other one works, it's not like the A9 where every single image has focus at 20 frames per second. It will only be every so often because it's the way the shutter mechanism works. Now, unless they've done some voodoo magic inside the camera, I don't think you're going to have 20 frames per second with full autofocus. I think you're going to find it's going to be focused between different shots. So you may get 14 or 12 frames per second that are actually in focus, and others may be in between that. But we'll have to wait and see for full testing on what that gives. But it's still amazing. I mean, if you're dealing with getting 14 to 16, it's enough anyway for most sports photographers. The buffer is nuts. In this camera, there's nothing I've ever seen like it. It's basically endless. You're getting 1,000 raw images. I think it's 200, 300 if you're using this HEIF format. But if you're doing RAW, it's basically endless. And you could shoot forever on this camera, basically, which is unbelievable. I mean, it is definitely incredible. 2 CF Express card slots. That's where it does beat the Sony because you're not limiting the card slots to slow anything down. And the buffer, like I said, is just endless in this. 191 autofocus points, 525 autofocus points in live view. So the live view is going to be very, very good. It won't beat Sony, but it's close. I've noticed that the new A7R focusing is close now to Sony when they brought that new firmware out the other day. The eye autofocus is really quite good now. It still doesn't beat Sony though, but they're getting close now. It's getting to the point where you could say it's usable now, definitely. Eye detection AF in live view for stills and video. 28 times more resolution than the 1DX. So that's, I think they're talking about the IAF. It's got better weather sealing. Now, it's in the video side of things, though, where they've taken this thing to the next level because this thing shoots 5.5K RAW. Now, this is internal, guys. So this has blown Sony out of the water if you're dealing with video. It does 5.5K video at 60 frames per second. It's unmatched, so it is. There's nothing, I don't think, like that if you're dealing with that. But then Canon adds some great standard modes on top of that. It's giving us 10-bit 422 and Canon log. If you're shooting video with a digital SLR, this simply will make your life much easier and your videos will be much more flexible to post-processing and other edits. Now, there's 2 ways of looking at this as well. Let's look at this from a use point like what I would shoot. The raw 5.5K for me would be useless because I've got nothing that could handle that. Really, I think you'd probably need the new Mac Pro or some beast of a computer to edit raw 5.5K video. But you can shoot in your standard 4K 60 video. I believe that you can shoot 4K 60 with a crop that gives you AF. Now, I'd be happy with that. Even though there's a crop there, at least it's 4K 60. You would just have to change the lens to get a wider shot. If you're shooting in 5.5K at 60 frames per second, it's manual focus. Now, videographers that are going to be using a RAW format and everything else would not care about that one bit. They're like the people that are using the GH5 and the SH1. They don't care about their focus being slow because they're manual focusers anyway. It is interesting that they're putting that, though, in a sports camera, because it seems to be a bit weird to me that they're giving you this amazing sports camera, but how could you shoot video, raw, sports stuff in focus with using manual focus? It's not possible. So it's a bit strange, but it's still a great feature to have. And like I said, if you're thinking that you could shoot 4K 60 in crop mode and have autofocus, and the autofocus will be pretty good. It's not as good as Sony, but it will be pretty good and usable. I think it's amazing. 10-bit 422, so if you do want that, it's great. Remember, 10-bit and 12-bit, I think this does actually even go up to 12-bit if you go into an external recorder. I think I read that somewhere. Is like the difference of shooting JPEG and RAW. The ability to grade your images is so much better if you have a machine that's capable of producing this. So, that's amazing. So, that you've got the eye autofocus that you're seeing now that's in the EOS R, which, like I said, now is usable. And it's actually very, very good since the latest update. Like I said, it's not as good as the latest Sony's, but it's still now getting to the point where it's getting close. So I think looking at this, I still think if you're looking overall, this is probably it's definitely the best hybrid type camera that's available in the marketplace, but you're paying for it. It's $10,000 Australian and it's $6,499 US. So you're certainly paying for this, and you need to be wanting to carry around a massive big camera, which, like say the A9, for instance, is tiny compared to the 1DX. If you're talking about a camera that will do stills and video to the ultimate sort of high end, I think there's no better camera that's available at the moment than what this is. This has certainly destroyed Sony in the video side. It's destroyed Sony in the video side. Autofocus, it won't beat Sony for sure in video. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But if you're talking about specs of having high-end video specs, this certainly has destroyed what Sony have got. But remember, you can buy the A9 too for, I think it's $2,000 cheaper than what this is. That's a lot of money. So if you bought the A9 II with $2,000 cheaper, you can go out and buy an amazing lens for the same cost that you'd only be paying for the 1DX Mark III. So that's another way of looking at this as well. You're paying for that ability to have that in both. Now, if Canon did this in their EOS R, if they brought these specs into a high-end EOS R, that would be incredible. And I really do hope Canon do that, because that would really push Sony to bring out something amazing. But, I'd love to know what your opinion about that is. But they've sort of really surprised me, Canon, in this, that apart from the fact you've got no autofocus in 5.5K, and there may be a reason that the processor can't handle that. I don't think Canon really have had it with the Casey. I'd love this. I should have the hammer coming out. I don't think they've really hit this with the Canon cripple hammer at all. It seems to me that it's a fully fledged camera, but we have to wait for full reviews, remember, not ambassadors. We have to wait for this to get out into the real hands of photographers. But from what I'm reading, it seems to me that Canon haven't held back with this camera. Having the crop at 4K 60, you might say, well, that's a cripple, but perhaps the processor couldn't handle full frame 4K 60. It may not have been able to handle that with autofocus. We haven't got that in any camera, full frame camera yet. So, who knows? At least they've given that option there. Yes, it's a crop mode if you want autofocus. If you want full frame without binning or anything like that, you've got 5.5K. You can shoot 5.5K RAW, and then obviously do that to the internal cards. It's incredible. And as a Sony user, I'm happy for Canon users. I think this is an amazing release. Would I buy it? Not in a heartbeat. But still, it's an incredible camera. I hope this pushes Sony to release something amazing soon. Now, on that too, let's also look at this. And this is what may hint to Canon doing something very, very soon on their EOS R line, is that they've said this. Apparently there's been an announcement that they're now no longer going to produce Canon EOS lenses unless there's a real need for them. So they're going to now develop the RF lenses for their R mount. So this sort of says to me that yes, the future is changing, that Canon now are going to stop producing cameras for their digital SLRs, and they're going to concentrate solely on an EOS R. And I do believe sometime this year we're going to get a high-end EOS R, and that may be incredible. Like I said, autofocus and things like that. The only thing that would stop me buying an EOS R at the moment is the single card slot now, and the crop, basically, because it's not 4K 60, just the crop. But apart from that, it's a great, you've got the EVF that will fold out, or the LCD that will fold out. It's got great focus now. You've got a great set of lenses now. But if they brought out a high-end camera with this, with great, the dual card slots, the fast two of them for backup, it could be an amazing camera. So they are now saying that they're going to concentrate on RF lenses for mirrorless only. So I think you're going to see a big push from Canon in the next 12 to 24 months on mirrorless. So it's an exciting time for that's for sure. Now let's also look at the Nikon 1 hour 15:40. Nikon also have brought out a pretty good release as well. If you're talking about digital SLRs, I might have to reduce this a bit. I know, it should be all right. I'll see. So they also have brought out the D780, and I just wanted to go through some of the specs on this as well. This also is a digital SLR, so this may also be the end of the line too for digital SLRs with Nikon as well. This is 25.5 megapixels, 7 frames per second continuous shooting. ISO on this is 100 to 51,000. Up to 204,800. It's got 4K UHD video recording, so there's no 4K 60 on this, but you have got 4K 30, 25, and 24p. I do believe, yes, it's got 10 bit. So they have beaten Sony that it's got 10-bit log and also HDR video recording. So they certainly have beat Sony in that they've given 10-bit recording in this as well. It's got built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, 51-point autofocus system. Now, from what I've heard, the focus system on this camera for using live view is unbelievably better than what it was in the previous camera. It's the same as using a DC, the N6, is it? Yeah, I've gone blank. It's the same as using the new Nikon mirrorless system, the Z6. Sorry, yeah, there you go. It's the same as that. So I believe it's unbelievable compared to the previous. So now you are going to be able to use this for video shooting if you want things like eye detection and face tracking and things like that now. So a massive improvement in video live view. It's got 273 points. Oops, it's just gone big. View, actual size. It's got 273 points of sensor phase detection on autofocus in the live view. It's got the X-Speed 6 image processing engine, 10-bit log, like I said, which would be amazing. Built-in timecode, face and eye detection, autofocus in live view. Silent shooting at 12 frames per second. The same thing here too is that we don't know, I believe Canon is shooting mechanical shutter. This is something I must point out because I forgot to mention that. In the Canon, and this is where this is so outstanding, is it's using mechanical shutter either way. So you do get 20 frames per second mechanical shutter. So there'll be no rolling shutter guys in this. That's one incredible feature about the Canon this Canon 1DX Mark III. So it will be brilliant if you're shooting either way through the EVF or through the screen on the back, the live view, because it is using mechanical the whole time. I'm not sure about the Nikon though. No one has mentioned whether it's using mechanical if you're shooting silent shutter, so I will still have to find out about that. Touchscreen is amazing on the Nikon cameras, and it's got dual UHS 2 card slots. And like I said, the live view now has been improved. The autofocus has been improved incredibly since these cameras first came out. So great announcement. I mean, Nikon, again, it's a good announcement if you're shooting digital SLRs, particularly in the video spec side of things. It just sort of points to me that, like I said, Sony have to do something quickly, I think, in video. because they are now being left behind. If you look at Fuji, if you look at Panasonic, Nikon, Canon, they're all producing better video specs than Sony are. They're not beating Sony in stills, but they're certainly beating Sony in video specs. So let's go to Q&A, guys, just quickly, and then we'll be out of here. What are we on? 1:19:50. Guys, just talk amongst yourselves quickly. I've got to go have wee-wees. Oh, that feels so much better. I was going to explode. I had to go, I can't wait to see what you say about that. All right, so let's go in the Q&A. I will be updated on the Facebook group. I'm not sure what that means. All right, so let's go back to here. Gerald says, I'm working on 2 models from New York City for Vegas for us to work with. That'd be fantastic. Ryan said, Santa Monica meetup will be great. It's where I live. Let me know when you need any recs. No worries, Ryan. Thanks for the offer. Yes, Gerald. For me to apply from Nepal is... he's talking about something else there. Photomix says, no, I won't be able to hit up in LA, Jim. Yep, so we're having that meetup in... if you like I said, Ike will be posting details about where his is and the cost and things like that for Ike, so I can totally understand him charging for that. Like I said, he'll be paying for models and he's paid for the van and all that sort of stuff, and he needs to recoup his costs. So when he posts that, it might be that I'll also be able to share that too, and we'll share that in the photography videography school. So please book in, because it will be limited numbers. I'm not sure how many Ike is going to be able to take. He may even be able to chime in now, but I'm not sure how many he'll be able to take. But there will be a cost involved, and that's totally fair. Like I said, I'll be with him as well. So let us know. I hope you can join us on that as well. Come along to Long Beach, CA. Is that... Well, we may be able to get up there, Zaddy. I was going to take you where the real crackheads are, Ike. I love it. I hate that when it jumps like that. I'm just trying to make sure I don't miss much. I'm just going to have to go from here, I think. Sorry, guys, I'm just trying to find where we're up to. Thank you for all the thumbs up too, everyone. We're 118. I really appreciate that, because it does mean a big difference. Tim said Nifty 50 could be updated as well. Yeah, the 50... Look, I still love the 55. I think that's an amazing lens. But yeah, even that probably could be updated with new motors. I still adore the 55 though. But some of those could definitely be upgraded. Yeah. Gerald said, I will have 2 amateur models from New York City and Vegas for the 3 days before WPPI. David and I will be there on those days, and we'll open up shootings to anyone if you can join us. The 85 GM2 would be nice. Yep, that's another one that could use the linear motors, Keith, and I agree with you. The 85 is slow. The motors in that, even though it's a gorgeous lens, the rendering and everything's beautiful, on that lens it's slow. That definitely could use the linear motors of the 135. Another advantage of the 2470 GM Mark II is that we could, of course, drop the price of the Mark I. Exactly. Sony 105, 1.4 or 100. Oh, yeah, I think it was 100. Thank you, Andre. I think it was the 100 1.4. It wasn't the 105. Thanks for correcting me on that. Fatamix says, I will try to make it to one of your shoots, Gerald. Man, it's going to be busy WPPI. It is, that's for sure. Last year I was tapped out by 7 p.m. Come on, we're only starting at 7 p.m. It's Aussie time, mate. We don't stop. We're just going to keep going. Canon 1DX Sports only. Probably the difference is I'm going to be there on holiday, so I'm probably not going to be stopping, and you guys are all going to be going to bed. Jesus, too much money for the A6 500 plus $400 for the cards. Gerald said, stay tuned on the groups. We will have open meetups in the Los Angeles area, Las Vegas area, Arizona, San Francisco, Yosemite, another 3 or 4 weeks. David is there. Yeah, that's right. And Michael has organised too to do it in a great restaurant. We're going to have a couple of meetups there, which apparently he said is like a photographer's paradise. I think you've talked about that. Have you spoken about that to Michael, Gerald? I'm not sure. But that's also going to be able to be done as well. He's offered that, so I can't wait for that. Non-stack sensor based on rolling shutter in samples. Which was that on guy with the camera? 501.2 gigabytes is too big and too heavy. Canon nailed it with the 1DX. They did. I think it's a great release. But it is expensive. Like I said, you can buy the A9 II for $2,000 less, roughly. The other thing too is, and this is a good point, if you're using it for video particularly, you definitely need a screen that can at least do this. To not have that on the Canon, and I can understand probably why they've done that. They've done that to make it more robust. And that's the reason why they don't have those screens that pop out on their high-end cameras. But you really do need a screen that you can do this to if you're shooting video particularly. It can be pretty hard to, be shooting low or whatever and you can't see the screen if you're shooting video or shooting with that back screen. I'm willing to meet global photographers and explore on broad environments as well. Fedomix says the 1D Mark 1 has some amazing specs. I'm not sure why people are saying it's crippled. Neither I think it's pretty good. I can't really see crippling in that at all. Like I said, I don't think it can be... I think it's the processor that causes it to not have autofocus in the 5.5K. But I think it's amazing. I think it's a brilliant camera. Zoet says, yes, you're right. I thought it was 6K via an update, but I'm also reading that 4K 120 is via external on the FX9, and we might get only 8 bits. I bet you any money they keep the 8 bits for the A7 series. I bet that, yeah. Gerald says, as a former pro shooter, the Canon 1DX, fully appreciate the Mark III, best digital SLR probably. CF Express, great buffer, but no IBIS. That is a good point. There's no IBIS. No EVF, no AF in 4K 60. You can get it cropped though, Gerald. You do get apparently AF in 4K 60 cropped, and I'd be happy with that. You just use a wider lens, so I think that's okay. It's certainly better than anything we've got on Sony, that's for sure. But IBIS, yes, you haven't, but I suppose most of the camera lenses that the photographers are going to be using are going to be stabilized anyway. $400 for cards and you get 1 hour of 5K. Yeah, it'd certainly be expensive, that's for sure. It does AF in 4K 60. Yes, it does. That's what I heard too. What else have we got? Only just for video, the 1DX Mark III is worth it. I agree. It's an incredible video camera. It's amazing. I mean, it will be incredible, but you're certainly paying for it. But at least they've given you amazing features in that camera. I think it's terrific. It's a terrific release. I mean, if people are bagging the camera, they're really only haters of Canon because, I mean, Gerald's not bagging it. There was just, but he wasn't quite correct in what he was saying. It does have autofocus in 4K 60, but it's cropped, and I think that's amazing. The older camera didn't, I believe, but this one does have 4K 60 AF in crop mode, which is brilliant. But like I said, if you're a videographer and you want to shoot in 4K 60 full frame, as long as you want to go manual, it's brilliant. And focusing manual on these cameras is not a problem. I mean, check out the video I did with Annalise where it was with the SLR lenses, and that was all manual focus, and I loved it. I really enjoyed it. So I think the camera is amazing. I love Sony, but I do give credit where credit's due, and I think Canon have done a great job with this camera. Very nice camera, but not for my niche. In my opinion, the 1DX is a poor form factor, no interest. Yeah, I don't want to go back to big cameras either. I mean, like I said, I wouldn't even have the grip on this if I had the choice, but I've kept it on due to the fact that Sony said this. But I like having the minimal size like it is. But remember, everyone's different. Sports photographers do tend to love those really big, beefy cameras. And in some ways, guys, if you're shooting video, the heavier the gear is, the more it helps you with your stabilized shots. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but there's something about holding something with more heft that the lighter it is, the more you're inclined to move the camera up and down. The more heavy the gear is, the more it tends to smooth out what you're shooting. So if you're hand holding, particularly anything with video, the heavier the gear is, the more it helps. I know it sounds counter intuitive or whatever, but it does actually help. You have got 4K AF in 4K 60 though, Sam. Photomix says, I don't blame... Oh, I don't know what that's talking about. G'day, I'm De Brown. Good to see you in here. Canon says they aren't making any more EF lenses and we're supposed to be shocked as if mirrorless is in the future. Yeah, I know. It's interesting that they said that, though, so soon after or as soon as the 1DX Mark III is released, though. It will make you think, ooh, I wouldn't like to hear that. But then again, the Canon lenses, they've got so many of them that do they probably need any others? Sam said the a7 III will be amazing. Oh, you meant to be saying the a7 IV will be amazing when it comes. It has to be. They have developed so long. Oh, the a7S III, I think you're talking about there. Tim said, Canon is late to the game, but they are in it. I agree with you. I think it's great. Remember, we definitely want competition, guys, and this is why it's good that Canon and Nikon are producing good cameras. It's going to force Sony's hand sooner or later. The A9 and the A9 II are still the best sports and action stills. 1DX has an advantage in the video specs, but also costs 50% more. At that price, I would expect less. Yeah, perhaps. We have to wait until we see... I think that was Jim. Let me just mark this. Jim just gave me a donation. Thanks for you and Kerry for... thank you so much, Jim. Really appreciate that. I still probably think that the A9 II and the A9 is still the best stills photography camera that's available. Yes, definitely. I still don't think there's anything that will be able to touch that. Like I said, don't forget they're touting 20 frames per second in the 1DX Mark III, but I don't think that will be 20 frames with full AF like the A9 is. So, yes, I don't think it's going to match the A9. There's no way. So that's one big point of difference. We have to wait till it's reviewed fully yet. Like I said, I can't go by what I'm seeing with the ambassadors. I have to wait until I see what real life reviews come out and say what it actually is. I would think it's probably going to be around 12 to say 14 to 16. There will be an improvement over the 1DX Mark II, which I think was around 12 to 14. So it's not going to beat the A9. But if you're talking about a camera that has both, the 1DX wins. I'm just trying to see. I think Canon will release a 5D type mirrorless. Yes, they will. There's no doubt they're going to release an EOS R high-end camera, and I think probably sometime this year. I shot the 7D, love that camera, but went Sony and haven't looked back. Andre says, Canon already has the advantage of the RF lenses. The Pro bodies will come this next year. Yep. And their lenses are amazing. The RF lenses are truly amazing. Sony, I agree, Tim. Sony also need to update their screen as well. The other manufacturers are leaving Sony for dead in their touchscreen at the back. I don't know why they're taking so long to release a screen. They're basically the same as what we had 5 years ago, and this is weird. They must have a bucket load of these lenses somewhere in a store, a warehouse, that they want to keep using because they haven't really upgraded the back screen for years, and their touch interface is terrible compared to when I used the ESR recently. The ESR is incredible when you use the touch screen on the back compared to what Sony is. And the Z series also is leagues ahead of what Sony are using. I mean, even the GH5, which is an old camera, is way better than what Sony are giving us in the touchscreens at the back, and I don't understand that either, Tim. I agree with you. Hold on, guys. David is going for a wee. I love it. David, is like that your favourite uncle that you can't wait to visit? Is Ike? I'm not sure what you mean. Is Ike, is it, or what? The D750 is a stellar release. I agree. It looks like it's a great release. But it's Team Z mount that would make it for a nice second body. I think it's a great release too, Ike. I think it's a really good release. Is Sony going to work on PF technology that Nikon have the lenses? And what does PF technology mean? I've gone blank. Congratulations on the fundraiser hitting your first goal. Yeah, I know. How good is it? I'm so happy. You guys are amazing. Why does it keep jumping like that? Stop it. Stop it, mouse. Let me come down here. As much as I can fit... Oh, okay. So you've got 12 to 15 people, Ike, you're saying. Jeff said, can you please stick the WWP info so it's easier to find the info? Jeff, just join the photography videography school. I'll have the link in the info box down below. Post your questions there because that's where everything will be posted. David, I won't even talk... David won't even talk to me anymore. What do you mean, Casper? Of course I will. David, you'll have to teach me how to live stream properly. Buy the 24GM. I love that lens. That is so good, that lens. I want to afford a nifty 50 with decent quality, just like the Canon one. I don't need eye sharpness in the corner. I love the 55. I love that. Robert says we are live. Hi, Robert. How are you? Steve said David's been abducted. I love it. Well, I can give you what is on the D6. It will have IBIS, it will have a detachable EVF, and you'll have to purchase separately. Interesting, Robert. I'm looking forward to seeing the full specs of the D6. How do you think people are going to use Canon's video features? Would it really be used at the Olympics, competing with actual video cameras during the Olympics? No, but it might be used to grab quick snippets. Like if you can use... The Canon autofocus now is very good, guys. So you could use it as, like I said, if you wanted 4K 60 in crop mode, which may be an advantage if you're trying to shoot, sports from fair way away. They could do snippets to give to media very, very quickly, so that also could be useful. Remember, having a hybrid camera where you've also got useful features, video features, is an amazing thing to have. So that could be a great thing to have there. If you want to shoot full frame, well then obviously that's useless because you'd have to shoot manual focus. That's no good at all. But if you're shooting in 4K 60 in crop mode, it looks like it might be a great feature. Jim said, gave the donation. Thank you so much as well. Heavy gear does balance out bigger lenses as well. No, Gerald may have... What I said that you skipped was after 40 years of shooting Canon, the Mark III is great, but I won't carry two of the bricks. Yeah, and I understand that, Gerald. They are incredibly heavy. And once, like I said, once you go to Sony and you start to use the lighter gear, you just don't want to go back to that heavier stuff anymore. I know for weddings, like I would hate to go back now to the heavier cameras. That's what I love so much about the Sony mirrorless cameras. You know, the mirrorless gear overall, they're so light. I agree, Gerald. Heavy camera more stable, I agree. I rigged up the A7 with lights, mics and handles to help stabilise. Yeah, it does help. The Sony a7R4 and the A9 II should have at least had 4K 60. I agree. Even if, like I said, if it was for a minute or something, it's bad that they never put that in. I agree. Some reviewers are saying you only have AF in video when using 4K crop mode. Yes, correct. 4K 60 in crop mode. You get AF apparently. Ken says, hey David, I've been using the a6100 for birding. I noticed that the a6100 performs well in high ISOs. The whole a6000 series is great. Even the a6000 series is great as long as you expose correctly. Great for ISO. Lower res RAW. I think it did have that, didn't it, Elliot? I can't remember. You might be able to tell me. I think the Canon did have a lower res RAW option, I think. Someone may be able to tell me, though. The 1DX2's battery is rated for 2,000 shots with OVF, but only 610 with the LCD. I would completely disregard those ratings. I've found that those ratings are way off. Way off. In fact, I just completely disregard them now. It depends how you shoot. And things like that. Wait for the real life reviews to come out. I would think you'd get way more than that rating. I don't know what's going on with this mouse. It's playing up. I love it. Andre said Sony needs a protest manifest. Let's go in front of the factory and shout out Sony a7S III. I love it. I'm new to Sony family, but like your advice. Thank you so much, Tim. Perhaps the a7 IV will have the updated touch usable screen. Who knows? You never know, but I doubt it. Andre says it would be nice to get an update of 4K 60. I think that will make so many Sony users happy. That's true. PF is phase Fresnel glass. Oh, okay. Nikon used to make their lenses lightweight. For example, the 300 PF-F4. I just bought a Sony a7 II and now I have several nice lenses. Lovely. Wow, why I'm new and I go for it for, what's that? Why I'm new and got it for $1,000. What's that? Oh, you're talking about the a7 II and those lenses. That's great. And I think we're just about it. A 55 Sony Zeiss 24 GM. Amazing. I love both of those. The RAW format and C-Log in the 1DX3 is not the same as the Canon C200. So it's a different RAW format, is it, Michael? Is that because they're using that HEIF? Is that? No, RAW format's not HEIF. That's the format that's replaced JPEG, isn't it? What's different about it, Michael? Sony's A7S or A9s don't have the lower res RAW for stills. How come? Who knows? And I wish they did, that's for sure. That would be amazing if they... You don't really need it on the A9, but you certainly need it for the A7R4. Andre says, I'm waiting 2 more months and I will sell all my Sony gear. Wow, that's a big move, Andre. Mark said, what I would like to know is which Sony lenses are coming out next. My bodies are good enough. I know it's going to be interesting, Mark. Like I say, I'm hoping for a wide-angle Sony lens. That's what I'm hoping for. I really don't need much else now. I'm quite comfortable with the lenses that I've got. YouTube says, my point is not the number of shots per se, it's the difference between OVF and LCD battery. Yep, it's massive, isn't it? Once I'm more comfortable in the ecosystem, I'll upgrade the body. Remember, Tim, you've done the right thing. It's better to get good glass than it is for the body. Glass will make a way bigger difference than a newer body will. That's always the case. Sell it now, Andre, and stop complaining. I love it. Now, Nigam said, so my question is that regarding Sony going to work towards making who knows, PF glass? I'm not sure. I don't know at all. All right, guys, that's about it. We've been having a long one. It's actually nearly 2 hours today. Boy, that was a long one. Thanks so much. Thank you so much for the donations. Really appreciate everything that you've done in that regard. Thank you so much, everyone. Kerry actually said I should have monetarized the video and then I could have moved the money over. I didn't think about that. I just thought initially that I didn't want to monetize that video because then it seemed like I was making money off it, but I probably should have monetized it and said right from the beginning that any money would be donated towards the appeal. But anyway, I didn't monetize it. like I said, I'm going to keep it going for possibly a little bit longer while the money still comes through, and then I'm going to donate it to that for that thing that I showed at the beginning, which is that the vets that go out and actually help the animals live. So stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for coming reviews over the weekend. Like I will have one possibly tomorrow or Sunday, which is the Tamron lenses reviewed, the 24 and the 35 together. So stay tuned for that. That'll be up, and I'll also have the Sony A9 review coming up soon as well. So that's about it, guys. So thank you so much, everyone, and I'll see you all for the next video. Bye for now.